Red wine hit Cole Brennan's face like a slap from the world that forgot him. It ran down his forehead, into his eyes, soaking into the green and brown camo of his Navy uniform. The same uniform that survived 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 ambushes, and the explosion that killed his best friend. The woman holding the empty glass laughed. Her boyfriend, the CEO of a billion-dollar construction company, smirked beside her. 300 guests watched. No one moved. No one knew that the man dripping wine onto marble floors held the only signature that controlled $1.2 billion. They were about to find out. Before we go on, tell us where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments so we can see how far this story travels. And, if it moves you, subscribe and stay until the very end. You won't believe how this one lands. Cole Brennan pulled his truck into the parking lot of the Grand Liberty Hotel and cut the engine. He sat still for a moment, hands resting on the wheel, listening to the rain tap against the windshield. In the back seat, Storm shifted. The German Shepherd's amber eyes caught the rearview mirror. Calm, watchful, already reading Cole's posture the way he'd read it 1,000 times before. In the field, in the dark, in the moments between orders. Cole reached back without looking and placed his hand on the dog's broad head. "Easy, boy. I won't be long." Storm exhaled through his nose. Not quite a sigh, more like disagreement. Cole grabbed the leather folder from the passenger seat and stepped out. Rain hit his shoulders, darkening the green and brown digital pattern of his NWU Type 3 camo. He'd worn it on purpose. Tonight's event was a signing ceremony for the Ironwood Project, a $1.2 billion veterans rehabilitation and canine training center, the biggest of its kind in American history. If they were going to celebrate veterans, he figured at least one should show up dressed like one. He opened the rear door. Storm jumped down, landing steady despite the faint limp in his back left leg, a souvenir from Helmand Province that most people never noticed. Cole gave a hand signal. "Stay." Storm sat beneath the hotel's covered entrance, ears forward, coat darkening in the mist. He didn't need a leash. He never had. "I'll be back," Cole said quietly. Storm didn't blink. Cole walked toward the entrance. A valet in a pressed jacket stared at him, then looked away. A couple in evening wear stepped aside as he passed, the woman pulling her clutch closer, like she'd just seen something she didn't trust. Cole didn't react. He'd been invisible for 5 years. Invisibility was the job. Inside, the noise hit him first. Laughter, clinking glass, jazz from somewhere he couldn't see. The ballroom was full. 300 guests, maybe more. Tuxedos, gowns, jewelry catching the light, every face polished, every handshake performed. Cole moved through the crowd the way he'd moved through hostile territory. Quiet, deliberate, watching everything. No one greeted him. A server carrying a tray of champagne flutes brushed past without a word. 2 men in matching charcoal suits glanced at his camo and exchanged a look Cole had seen 100 times. The look that said, "Wrong room, buddy." He kept walking. At the bar, a man in his late 50s was wiping a glass with a white cloth. Stocky, silver stubble, hands that had held more than cocktail shakers. Frank DeLuca looked up as Cole approached, and something in his eyes shifted. He set the glass down slowly. "Long night already?" Frank asked. Cole met his gaze. "Getting there." Frank studied him. Not the uniform, not the folder. The posture, the hands, the way Cole's eyes never stopped moving, even when the rest of him was perfectly still. "You served," Frank said. It wasn't a question. 12 years, Navy. Frank nodded once. Gulf War, Marines, 89 to 91. He slid a glass of water across the bar. "On the house." though something tells me you're not here for the drinks. Cole picked up the glass. I'm here for the signing. Frank's eyebrows lifted. The signing, as in the big one, the one they've been rehearsing speeches for all week. That one. Frank leaned forward, lowering his voice. You see that man up near the stage? Tall, dark hair, smile like he's running for something? Cole glanced. He already knew. That's Derek Ashford, Frank continued, CEO of the company building the center. He's been in here twice this week doing walkthroughs. Treats the staff like furniture. Tips like he's doing us a favor by existing. I know who he is. Then you know to watch your back. Cole took a slow sip of water. I appreciate that. Frank straightened up. Whatever you're doing here tonight, good luck. I got a feeling you'll need it. Cole set the glass down and turned toward the ballroom. The leather folder felt heavier now, not because of the paper inside, because of what the paper meant. Inside that folder was the original Ironwood project contract. The real one, not the ceremonial copy they'd wave around on stage. This contract required one signature to activate $1.2 billion in funding. One signature that belonged to the Ironwood Foundation's true representative. Not the public-facing director, not the PR team, not the lawyers. Cole Brennan. The man everyone in this room assumed was someone's driver. He'd kept it that way for 5 years. After leaving the SEALs, he'd been recruited by the Foundation, a private fund built by anonymous veteran donors who wanted to create something real, something uncorrupted. They needed an operator, someone who could move without being noticed, someone whose ego didn't need feeding. Cole drove. He observed. He assessed. And when the moment demanded it, he decided. He was the lock and the key. No one signed without him. No one built without his approval. Tonight, he was here to read the final blueprints and sign off. That was the plan. But as he moved closer to the stage, his eyes caught the display screens showing the project designs, and his stomach tightened. The Canine Rehabilitation Wing was gone, replaced by something labeled Donor Experience Lounge. The veteran housing units had been cut by nearly half. The therapy gardens, the feature Danny had talked about most, the green spaces where veterans could sit with their dogs in silence, erased entirely. In their place, a conference center and a VIP parking structure. Cole stopped walking. His grip on the folder tightened until his knuckles whitened. The left hand, the one with the burn scar from Kandahar, the one that had pulled Danny Webb from a burning vehicle and held him while he bled out on the road. Danny, Cole said under his breath. So quiet, no one could hear. He closed his eyes for 2 seconds. When he opened them, he was moving again, straight toward the stage. Derek Ashford saw him first. The CEO had been mid-conversation with a city councilwoman, laughing at something that wasn't funny, when he spotted the man in camo cutting through the crowd like a blade through silk. Derek excused himself and intercepted Cole 6 feet from the stage steps. Hey, Derek's voice was sharp, controlled, the voice of a man used to removing obstacles before they became problems. You're in the wrong place. Cole stopped. I'm here for the signing. Derek looked him up and down, the camo, the boots, the leather folder. His lip curled. The signing is by invitation. This is a private event. I know what it is. Then you know that drivers wait outside. Derek stepped closer. His cologne hit first. Then his voice dropped to that register men use when they want to sound dangerous without raising their volume. Don't make this uncomfortable. Cole held the folder up slightly. I have the contract. Derek laughed. Short. Dismissive. Buddy, The contract is already on stage. It's been reviewed by 6 lawyers and a senator. Whatever you're carrying is probably a parking receipt. The contract on stage is a presentation copy. It has no authorization clause, no funding activation, no signature line. Cole's voice didn't change, didn't rise, didn't sharpen. This one does. For 2 full seconds, Derek said nothing. Something flickered behind his eyes. Not recognition yet, but the first crack of doubt. "Who sent you?" Derek asked. "The Foundation." "Wallace Kent sent you?" "Wallace doesn't send me anywhere. He answers to the same people I do." Derek's jaw tightened. Around them, guests had started to notice. Conversations faded to murmurs. Heads turned. A few phones appeared. "I don't know who you think you are," Derek said, his voice louder now, performing for the room. "But this is a formal event, and you are disrupting it. Security." He raised his hand to signal someone, then froze. Because Cole hadn't moved, hadn't flinched, hadn't even shifted his weight. He just stood there, the folder at his side, his eyes locked on Derek's with the kind of stillness that made people deeply uncomfortable without understanding why. That's when Chloe Ashford appeared. She walked up beside Derek like a spotlight following a lead actress. Platinum blonde hair, ivory dress, diamonds at her throat. She carried a glass of red wine in one hand and an expression of amused curiosity on her face. "What's happening?" she asked, looping her arm through Derek's. Her voice was honey over glass. "Nothing," Derek said. "Just a confused employee." Chloe looked at Cole. Her eyes traveled from his boots to his collar, pausing at the camo pattern like it offended her personally. "You're wearing that? Here?" "It's a Navy working uniform, ma'am." "At a gala?" "At a veterans event. Yes, ma'am." Chloe turned to Derek with wide, delighted eyes. "Oh, he's serious." A ripple of laughter passed through the nearest guests. Someone whispered. Someone else raised a phone. Cole felt it, the tightening in his chest. Not anger, not shame. Something older. The thing that happens when you've been reduced in public, and every cell in your body knows the right response is restraint. But the effort of that restraint carves a groove straight through your center. He thought of Storm, waiting outside in the rain, patient, unmoving, present without needing to perform. He breathed. "Ma'am," Cole said, his voice steady, "the project this event celebrates was designed to serve veterans and their canine partners. I'm here because the design has been altered. The canine wing is gone. The veteran housing was cut. Someone redirected those funds, and I'd like to know where they went before any contract gets signed tonight." Silence. Real silence. The kind that presses on a room. Derek recovered first. "This is absurd. Security, get him out." "You cut the therapy gardens," Cole continued, not raising his voice. "You replaced the rehabilitation kennels with a lounge for donors. This project was supposed to heal people. You turned it into a showroom. That's a business decision," Derek snapped, "and one you have zero authority to question." "I have every authority to question it, because nothing gets built without my approval." The room shifted, not physically, energetically. The air changed the way it changes before a storm, invisible but undeniable. Derek stared at Cole. "Your approval? My name is Cole Brennan. I'm the Ironwood Foundation's authorized representative. The $1.2 billion in funding for this project requires my signature alone. And right now, Mr. Ashford, you're not getting it." 2 heartbeats of total silence. Then Derek's face went through a transformation. Confusion, disbelief, anger, and then something worse. A smile. The smile of a man who decided to stop thinking and start winning. "This is insane," Derek said, turning to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, this man just walked in off the street and claims he controls $1 billion. In army pajamas." He spread his hands. "Someone call the VA. They're missing a patient." Laughter. Nervous, scattered, but real. Chloe watched Cole's face. She was looking for the crack, the flinch, the moment the humiliation landed. When she didn't find it, something in her expression hardened. She lifted the glass of red wine. Full. Dark Cabernet, the color of something older than grapes. "Here," Chloe said, her voice sweet as a closing door. "Let me help you feel more at home." She poured it, slowly, deliberately, over the top of Cole Brennan's head. The wine hit his dark brown hair first, splitting into streams that ran down his forehead, along his temples, into his eyes, down his cheeks, soaking into the collar of his NWU camo. The green and brown fabric turned dark. It dripped from his jaw like a wound. The room gasped. Phones rose higher. Someone laughed. The brittle, high-pitched sound of a person who knows they're witnessing something wrong, but can't look away. Cole didn't move. He stood there, wine in his eyes, wine on his uniform, wine dripping onto the marble floor between his boots. He didn't wipe his face. He didn't clench his fists. He didn't say a word. He looked down at the leather folder, checked it. The contract was dry, protected. He closed the folder carefully, pressing the clasp until it clicked. Then he looked up at Derek Ashford, not with anger, not with defeat, with something Derek had never encountered in a boardroom or a ballroom or a negotiation. Total, unshakable clarity. The look of a man who had survived things these people couldn't imagine, who had held a dying friend in the dirt and promised to build something worthy of his sacrifice, who had walked through fire, literal fire, and chose to walk through this too. "That uniform," Cole said quietly, wine dripping from his jaw, "survived Kandahar. It'll survive this." He turned around. The crowd parted. No one spoke. No one reached for him. He walked through 300 people as if they weren't there, each step steady, each breath measured, leaving a trail of red drops on the white marble floor. He pushed through the glass doors. Rain hit his face, mixing with the wine, washing it down in pale streaks. Storm was already on his feet, pressing his body against Cole's leg. 75 pounds of warm, steady, living certainty. The dog didn't bark, didn't whimper, just leaned in and stayed. Cole knelt, one hand on Storm's neck, fingers in the familiar fur, warm and rough against the burn scar on his palm. Storm's heartbeat was slow and even, the heartbeat Cole had matched his own breathing to on nights when nothing else worked. "Good boy," Cole whispered. He stood, pulled out his phone, dialed one number. The line rang twice. "Pull the authorization," Cole said. "All of it. Every dollar. Effective now." He ended the call, slid the phone into his pocket, put his hand back on Storm's head. Inside the Grand Liberty Hotel, 300 people were raising glasses to a project that no longer existed. They were clapping for a future that had just been erased by a single phone call from the man they'd laughed at. The man with wine on his face and a promise in his chest that was older and stronger than anything in that room. They didn't know yet. By morning they would. And by then, it would be too late to take back a single drop. The ballroom didn't empty when Cole left. It stalled. The jazz quartet kept playing, but the notes landed wrong. Too bright, too careless against the silence that had swallowed every conversation. Guests stood with glasses half raised, eyes darting toward the doors where the trail of red wine still glistened on the marble floor. Derek Ashford was the first to move. He straightened his jacket, tugged his cuffs, turned to the crowd with a smile that took visible effort. "Well," he said, loud enough to carry, "I think someone had a little too much to drink before the party started." A few people laughed. Most didn't. Chloe stood beside him, the empty wine glass still in her hand. She hadn't set it down, hadn't moved. Her eyes were fixed on the glass doors where Cole had disappeared into the rain. Something in her expression had shifted. Not guilt, not yet, but the first tremor of a woman realizing the ground beneath her wasn't as solid as she thought. "Derek," she said quietly. "Not now." "Derek, who was he?" "Nobody. A prop. Someone trying to crash the event." "He knew about the blueprints. He knew what you changed." Derek turned to her with a look that could cut steel. "I said, not now." He walked to the stage, grabbed the microphone, delivered the rest of his speech as if nothing had happened. The same polished words about honoring service, building futures, supporting heroes. The crowd applauded because applause was expected. The ceremonial contract was displayed, photos were taken, handshakes exchanged. But under every smile, behind every raised glass, a question pulsed like a heartbeat no one could ignore. Who was that man? 7 hours later, the answers started to arrive. Derek walked into Ashford Crown's Dallas headquarters at 6:47 a.m. He hadn't slept. He'd spent the night making calls to lawyers, to board members, to Wallace Kent. No one answered. Not one. His CFO, Martin Hale, met him in the lobby. Martin was 52, balding, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of man who delivered bad news the way a surgeon delivers a diagnosis, precise and without cushion. "We have a problem," Martin said. "I know we have a problem. I've been calling Wallace for 6 hours." "It's bigger than Wallace." They walked into the elevator. Martin pressed the button for the executive floor and stared straight ahead. "The Ironwood Foundation froze the funding at 11:14 p.m. last night," Martin said. "All of it. Every wire transfer, every pending disbursement. $1.2 billion. Locked." Derek's jaw tightened. On whose authority? "That's the problem. The freeze came from an authorization code we've never seen. It bypassed Wallace Kent entirely. It bypassed the Foundation's legal team. It went straight to the financial trustees." "That's not possible. Wallace is the director." "Wallace is the face, Derek. He's the man who gives speeches and signs presentation copies. The actual funding authority, the real signature, sits with someone else." The elevator doors opened. Derek didn't move. "Who?" he asked. Martin looked at him. "A man named Cole Brennan." The name hit like a detonation in a closed room. Derek felt it in his chest. Not the name itself, but everything it meant. Everything it rewrote. Every assumption he'd made in that ballroom. Every dismissive word. Every smirk. All of it collapsing inward like a building losing its foundation. "The soldier," Derek said. "Former Navy SEAL. 12 years of service. 3 combat deployments. Silver Star. 2 Bronze Stars. He's been the Foundation's authorized representative for 5 years. Every major decision, every partnership approval, every dollar allocated, it went through him." Derek leaned against the elevator wall. "He was wearing camo. He looked like—" "Like what?" Martin asked. "Like someone you wouldn't take seriously?" Derek didn't answer. "There's more," Martin said. "Check your phone." Derek pulled it out. His notifications had exploded overnight. Emails, texts, news alerts, all pointing to the same thing. He opened the first link. The video. Someone at the gala had recorded everything. Chloe pouring the wine, Cole standing motionless, the red streaming down his face and soaking into his uniform. The clip was 53 seconds long and had been posted at midnight. By 7 a.m., it had been viewed 4 million times. The headline on every share was the same. Socialite pours wine on veteran at veterans' charity event. The comments were a wildfire. Veterans groups had shared it thousands of times. Military families were tagging senators. News outlets from Austin to New York were running it. Hashtag Respect the Uniform was trending nationally. And no one, not a single outlet, had identified Cole by name. He was just the soldier, the man in camo who didn't flinch, the one who checked his folder before he checked his dignity. Derek closed his eyes. "Get me Wallace on the phone, now." "He answered 20 minutes ago. He's on line 2 in your office." Derek moved fast, down the hall, through the double doors, past his assistant, who tried to hand him messages he didn't take. He grabbed the phone on his desk and pressed the blinking button. "Wallace." "Derek." Wallace Kent's voice was thin, strained, the voice of a man standing on a ledge he hadn't expected. "I assume you've seen the numbers." "Forget the numbers. Tell me about Bremen." Silence. Then a breath. "Cole Brennan he's not someone I can overrule. He's not someone anyone can overrule. The foundation was built with a single control mechanism. One person with final authority on all funding decisions. Cole is that person." "Why him?" "Because the donors trust him. Because he's incorruptible. Because when you hand a man $1.2 billion and he still drives a 10-year-old truck and lives in a house he paid cash for, you know the money is safe." Derek paced behind his desk. "Then get him to unfreeze it. Apologize. Offer whatever—" "You're not hearing me, Derek. I've worked with Cole for 3 years. I've never seen him reverse a decision. Ever. When he pulls authorization, it stays pulled until he decides otherwise. And what happened last night? What your wife did. I know what she did. Then you know this isn't a negotiation problem. This is a trust problem. And you broke it in front of 300 witnesses and 4 million viewers." Derek slammed his palm on the desk. "There has to be a way around him." "There isn't. That's the point. That's why they chose him." Derek hung up without another word. He stood behind his desk, staring at nothing, feeling the architecture of his entire career tremble beneath him. His phone rang again. The screen showed a name that made his blood run cold. Senator Raymond Cross. Derek answered. "Tell me I'm dreaming," Cross said. "No greeting, no pretense. Senator, tell me that you did not let your wife pour wine on the one man in America who controls the largest veterans fund in history. On camera, at an event I personally endorsed." "It wasn't planned. I don't care if it was planned by God himself. Do you understand what's at stake? This project is how I justify the Defense Appropriations Bill. It's how I keep my committee seat. It's how I stay relevant in an election year. And you just turned it into a meme." Derek gripped the phone. "I'll fix it." "You'll fix it? How? The video is everywhere. Veterans groups are calling for congressional hearings. My office has received 600 emails since midnight. 600, Derek. From people who think I partnered with a man who hates the military." "I don't hate the military. You poured wine on a Navy SEAL." "Chloe poured your wife. Your event. Your problem." Cross's voice dropped to a register that was worse than shouting. Cold, deliberate, stripped of all political warmth. "Let me be clear. You have 72 hours to unfreeze that money. If you don't, I will publicly distance myself from Ashford Crown. I will redirect the contract to another firm, and I will make sure your name becomes synonymous with everything wrong with government contracting. Am I understood? Senator, if you'd just 72 hours. The line went dead. Derek set the phone down. His hands were shaking. Not from fear, from the sudden, nauseating recognition that every lever he'd built his life on had been kicked out from under him in a single night by a man he'd mistaken for a driver. Across town, in a modest ranch house outside Fort Worth, the morning was quieter. Cole sat on his front porch in a wooden chair, a mug of black coffee cooling in his hand. He wore the same boots he'd worn last night, the same kind he'd worn in Helmand Province, the same kind Danny Webb had joked looked like they'd survived more missions than either of them. Storm lay beside the chair, head on his front paws, his tan and black coat still damp from the night's rain. His eyes were half closed, but his ears tracked every sound: a bird on the fence line, a truck on the distant road, the creak of the porch boards when Cole shifted his weight. Cole's phone sat on the armrest, buzzing every few seconds. He hadn't looked at it since the call last night. He didn't need to. He knew what was happening. He knew the freeze would trigger panic, that the video would spread, that by morning the dominoes would be falling in a pattern he'd anticipated long before he walked into that ballroom. What he hadn't anticipated was the whine, not the act itself. He'd been disrespected before, in worse ways, by people with far more power than Chloe Ashford. What he hadn't anticipated was how it made him feel afterward. Not humiliated, not angry, tired. Tired of proving that the uniform meant something. Tired of standing in rooms where service was a prop and sacrifice was a speech topic. Tired of carrying Danny's dream through a world that kept trying to monetize it. His phone buzzed again. This time, he looked. One name. Mom. He answered. "I saw it," Maggie said. No hello. Her voice was steady, but underneath it, Cole could hear the tremble she was trying to hide. "Mom, I'm fine." "You're not fine. Don't do that with me, Cole. Don't be the soldier right now. Be my son." He closed his eyes. "Okay. That woman poured wine on you, on your uniform, on television, and you just stood there. What was I supposed to do?" "I don't know. Something. Anything. You could have..." "Could have what? Yelled? Grabbed her arm? Given them exactly what they expected? The angry veteran? The unstable soldier?" Cole's voice hardened for the first time. "That's what they wanted, Mom. That's what people like that always want. A reaction they can use. A reason to say, I didn't belong there." Maggie was quiet. "I belong there," Cole said. "Danny belonged there. Every veteran who was supposed to benefit from that center belonged there. The only people who didn't belong were the ones pouring wine." Maggie's breath caught. When she spoke again, her voice was thick. "Your father would have knocked that man flat." "I know. And then he would have come home and sat in the garage for 3 days because that's how he handled everything. Fists first, silence after." It destroyed him, Cole. The anger, the pride. He couldn't let anything go, and it ate him from the inside until there was nothing left. Cole stared at the coffee in his hands. "I remember. He died in a VA waiting room because the system failed him. Because nobody with money or power gave a damn about a veteran who couldn't fill out the right forms. And now these people have the nerve to throw wine at my son? At an event that's supposed to help people like your father? That's why I froze the money. I know. I'm not going to let them build a showroom and call it healing. Danny didn't die for a donor lounge. Maggie paused. What are you going to do? What I always do. Quietly? For now. Cole, she hesitated. Sometimes quiet isn't enough. Sometimes people need to see who you are. They'll see. When the center opens the right way, they'll see. Promise me something. What? Promise me this isn't just about the contract. Promise me you're taking care of yourself, not just the mission. You. Cole looked down at Storm. The dog had lifted his head, watching Cole with those amber eyes that never judged, never demanded, never wavered. The same eyes that had found him in the wreckage of a burning vehicle in Afghanistan. The same eyes that had kept him grounded through every nightmare, every flashback, every morning when getting out of bed felt like a tactical operation. I've got Storm, Cole said. I'm okay. That's not an answer. It's the best one I've got right now. Maggie sighed. I love you, and I'm proud of you, even when you make me want to scream. Love you too, Mom. He hung up, set the phone back on the armrest, picked up his coffee, and took a sip. It was cold. Storm's tail moved once against the porch boards. Yeah, Cole said to the dog. I know. He sat there for a long time, watching the sun climb over the tree line, turning the wet grass to gold. Somewhere inside the house, his laptop held 5 years of foundation records. Every dollar tracked, every allocation documented, every partnership vetted. The audit trail was clean. He'd made sure of that. What Cole hadn't told his mother, what he hadn't told anyone, was that the Ironwood project wasn't just a contract to him. It was the last promise he'd made to a man who died believing it would get built. That night in Helmand Province played behind his eyes whether he wanted it to or not. The convoy, the dust, Danny in the seat beside him, talking about dogs the way he always did. Not as weapons or tools, but as partners. Souls with 4 legs and more heart than most humans deserved. When we get back, Danny had said, I'm going to build something. A place for guys like us. Dogs like Storm. Somewhere they can just exist without anyone telling them they're broken. Sounds expensive, Cole had said. So we'll find the money. Rich guys love writing checks for veterans. Makes them feel patriotic without getting their shoes dirty. Cole had smiled. And who's going to run this place? Danny had looked at him, really looked, the way Danny did when he was about to say something he meant more than anything. You, if something happens to me, you finish it. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me, Cole. The road ahead had shimmered with heat. Storm panted softly in the back. I promise, Cole had said. 14 minutes later, the IED detonated beneath the lead vehicle. The world turned white, then black, then silent. Cole pulled himself from the wreckage, ears ringing, blood in his eyes. He crawled to the burning vehicle, found Danny pinned beneath the dashboard. Pulled with everything he had, both hands, the left one already burning, skin peeling against hot metal. He got Danny out, dragged him 15 feet from the fire, held him in the dirt while the medics ran. Danny grabbed Cole's wrist. His grip was weak. His eyes were clear. Build it, Danny whispered. You're going to be fine. Build it, Cole. Don't let them turn it into a show. Danny, promise me again. I promise, Danny. Danny's grip loosened. His eyes didn't close. They stayed open, fixed on a sky he couldn't see anymore. Storm was there, standing over them both, muzzle against Danny's hand, whimpering once, a sound Cole had never heard the dog make before, and never heard again. Now, 5 years later, Cole sat on a porch in Texas with that same dog at his feet and wine stains on a uniform that had outlived the man it was supposed to match. He reached down and placed his hand on Storm's head. The dog pressed into his palm. "We're close, boy," Cole said. "We're close." His phone buzzed again. Not Maggie this time. Not Wallace. A number he didn't recognize. He answered. "Mr. Brennan?" A woman's voice, young, shaking slightly. "My name is Chloe Ashford. I know you have no reason to speak to me, but I need you to know, I need to tell you, what I did last night was the worst thing I've ever done. And I'm not calling because my husband told me to." He doesn't know I'm calling. "I'm calling because I watched that video this morning and I didn't recognize myself. I don't want to be that person. I don't know how to undo it, but I'm asking, please, tell me how to begin." Cole said nothing for a long time. Storm's ears rotated toward the phone, reading the tension in the voice, the way he'd once read tension in footsteps on gravel roads. Finally, Cole spoke. "You poured wine on a uniform that a man died wearing, Mrs. Ashford. Not me. A man named Danny Webb. He never made it home. That uniform was the closest thing I have to standing beside him again. And you used it as a joke." Silence on the other end. Then a sound Cole recognized. The raw, ugly inhale of someone crying who doesn't want to be heard. "I didn't know," Chloe whispered. "No one ever does," Cole said. "That's the problem." He hung up. And the morning kept coming. Chloe Ashford sat on the bathroom floor of her penthouse for 40 minutes after Cole hung up. She didn't move, didn't wipe her face. The phone rested on the cold tile beside her, screen dark, and all she could hear was his voice. Not angry, not cruel, just honest, in a way that cut deeper than any insult she'd ever received. A man named Danny Webb. He never made it home. She said the name out loud. Danny Webb. A stranger. A dead man. A man whose uniform she'd stained with Cabernet while 300 people watched and laughed. She pressed her palms against her eyes and felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart, because that would be dramatic, and Chloe was done with dramatic. Something smaller. Something structural. The beam that held up the version of herself she'd been performing for 5 years. Her phone buzzed. Derek. She declined the call. It buzzed again. Declined. A text followed. "Where are you? We need to coordinate messaging. PR team is waiting." Coordinate messaging. That's what he called it. Not apologize. Not fix what we broke. Coordinate messaging. Like the whole thing was a press release that needed better formatting. She stood up, washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror, and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Not because she'd changed, but because for the first time, she was actually looking. She picked up her phone and typed one text to Derek. "I'm done coordinating." Then she turned the phone off. 40 miles south, in his Dallas high-rise office, Derek Ashford was coordinating plenty. He'd assembled his crisis team by 9 a.m. 2 PR consultants, his in-house attorney, and Martin Hale, who sat in the corner looking like a man watching a car accident from inside the car. "We control the narrative," Derek said, pacing behind his desk. "The story right now is about a disgruntled veteran who crashed a private event. We reframe it. He was trespassing. He was aggressive. Chloe felt threatened." The lead PR consultant, a woman named Karen Weeks, shook her head slowly. "Derek, the video has 11 million views. 11 million. Every major network has it. CNN ran it at the top of the hour. The man didn't raise his voice. He didn't move. He stood there while your wife poured wine on his head. There is no version of this where he looks aggressive. Then we question his credentials. He claims to represent the foundation. Prove it. Has anyone verified that? Martin spoke from the corner. I verified it this morning. Cole Brennan, Navy SEAL Team 4, Silver Star recipient. He's been the Foundation's sole authorized representative for 5 years. His signature controls all funding. It's not a claim, Derek. It's a fact. Derek stopped pacing. Then we go around him. The Foundation has a board. We appeal directly. The board defers to him, Martin said. That's the structure. That's by design. The donors wanted one person they trusted completely, and they chose Brennan specifically because he can't be pressured, bought, or intimidated. Martin paused. You tried all three in about 90 seconds. Derek's attorney, a sharp-jawed man named Patterson, cleared his throat. There may be another angle. Senator Cross fast-tracked our contract through a competitive process. If we can demonstrate that the project serves a critical public interest, we might be able to apply political pressure to force the Foundation's hand. Cross is already pressuring me, Derek snapped. He gave me 72 hours. Then use those hours. If Cross goes public with support for the project, frames the freeze as obstruction of a veterans initiative, it puts Brennan on defense. Derek considered this. It was ugly. It was manipulative. It was exactly the kind of thing he was good at. Do it, he said. Get Cross on the phone. Karen Weeks stood up. I want it on record that I advised against this. Noted. Do it anyway. Karen walked out. Martin followed, pausing at the door. Derek, I've seen a lot of crises. I've never seen one where the person holding all the cards is the one with nothing to lose. That man lives in a ranch house and drives a truck older than your watch. You can't leverage someone who doesn't want anything you have. Derek didn't respond. Martin closed the door. By noon, Senator Raymond Cross made his move. Not publicly. Not yet. He called 3 contacts at the Department of Veterans Affairs and planted a seed. The Ironwood Foundation was under internal review for financial irregularities. No evidence, no filing, just a whisper, aimed like a weapon, designed to generate headlines before anyone could verify the claim. It worked. By 2 p.m., 2 news outlets ran the story. Veterans Fund behind billion-dollar project faces financial questions. The articles were thin, unnamed sources, vague concerns, no specifics. But in the age of scrolling headlines, thin was enough. Cole saw the articles at 2:17 p.m. He was sitting at his kitchen table, laptop open, Storm lying across his feet. He read both pieces slowly, then read them again. His jaw tightened. Not at the lies themselves. He'd expected lies. What tightened his jaw was the speed, the coordinated timing, the fingerprints of someone who understood that in politics, a lie only needs to live long enough to do damage. He picked up his phone and called Captain Elena Vargas. Elena answered on the first ring. I saw it. How bad? Bad enough. 2 of our partner organizations called this morning asking if the Foundation is being investigated. I told them no, but the headlines are doing their job. People are scared. It's Cross. Has to be. Of course it's Cross. He steered the contract to Ashford. If the project collapses, his fingerprints are all over it. He's trying to discredit us before we discredit him. Cole leaned back in his chair. Storm shifted beneath the table, pressing closer to his legs. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. When have I ever been anything else? If we release the full audit, every dollar, every allocation, every decision, it clears the Foundation. But it also exposes me. My name, my role. Everything I've kept hidden for 5 years. Silence. Then Elena's voice, quieter now. I know. I became invisible for a reason. The foundation works because no one knows who runs it. The moment my name goes public, that protection is gone. Every future partner, every negotiation, every deal, they'll know my face. They'll know my history. They'll try to use it. Yes, they will. So tell me it's worth it. Elena didn't hesitate. Cole, listen to me. I lost my arm in Fallujah. I spent 2 years in a VA hospital where the ceiling tiles leaked, and the counselors rotated every 3 months because nobody could afford to stay. When I heard about the Ironwood project, it was the first time in 10 years I thought maybe somebody actually gave a damn. Not as a photo op, not as a tax write-off. For real. Her voice hardened. If releasing your name is what it takes to protect that, then it's worth it. Danny would say the same thing. Cole closed his eyes. Danny's face flashed behind his eyelids, smiling, dusty, alive. Always alive in his memory, no matter how many years passed. Danny didn't die so I could stay comfortable, Cole said. No, he didn't. Make the calls. We release everything. Full audit. Public. Tomorrow morning. Cole, once this is out, there's no going back. I know. You sure? I've been sure since Kandahar. Elena paused. I'll have the documents ready by tonight. And Cole? Yeah? Storm's a good judge of character. If he trusts you, that's good enough for me. Cole looked down at the dog beneath the table. Storm's amber eyes were fixed on him, unblinking, patient, the way they'd been fixed on him through firefights and nightmares and every silent morning since. He doesn't have much choice, Cole said. I'm the one with the can opener. Elena laughed, a real laugh, short and warm, and hung up. Cole set the phone down. He stared at the laptop screen. 5 years of anonymity about to evaporate. 5 years of protection about to burn. He thought about what his mother had said. Sometimes quiet isn't enough. Sometimes people need to see. He opened a new email, typed one line to the Foundation's legal team. Prepare the full financial disclosure. Every account, every transaction. My name included. Release authorized for 8 a.m. tomorrow. He hit send before he could change his mind. 300 miles away, in a penthouse she no longer wanted to be in, Chloe Ashford was packing a suitcase. One suitcase. She chose carefully. Practical things. Things she could carry. Things that didn't require Derek's credit card to maintain. Derek found her in the closet. He stood in the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled, the look of a man who'd been fighting all day and couldn't understand why his own wife was joining the other side. What are you doing? He asked. Leaving? Chloe, this is not the time. It's exactly the time. She didn't look at him. She folded the sweater and placed it in the suitcase. I called him this morning. Cole Brennan. Derek's face went white. You what? I called him. I told him what I did was the worst thing I've ever done. I told him I didn't recognize myself in that video. Are you out of your mind? Do you know what that does to our legal position? You just admitted I admitted the truth, Derek. Something you wouldn't recognize if it knocked on the front door and introduced itself. You're emotional. You're reacting. Sit down and let's talk about... I'm not emotional. I'm awake. She stopped packing and turned to face him. He told me something on the phone. He said I poured wine on a uniform that a man died wearing. A man named Danny Webb. Did you know that? Derek said nothing. Did you know that Cole Brennan pulled his best friend out of a burning vehicle in Afghanistan? That his friend died in his arms? That the uniform I ruined was the same kind his friend wore the day he was killed? Chloe, I did that, Derek. I did that because you taught me that humiliating people who can't fight back is power. Because I've spent 5 years watching you treat waiters and drivers and anyone without a title like they're invisible. And I became that. I became you. Derek's expression hardened. Everything I built, everything you enjoy, comes from me being exactly who I am. And who is that, Derek? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a man who stole money meant for veterans, lied to a senator, and watched his wife assault a war hero without lifting a finger to stop her. I didn't assault anyone. He didn't stop me either. That's the same thing. She zipped the suitcase, pulled the handle up, walked past him without touching him. If you walk out that door, Derek said, don't expect me to come after you. Chloe stopped, turned, looked at him the way Cole Brennan had looked at him in the ballroom. Not with anger, not with hatred, but with the devastating clarity of someone who finally sees you exactly as you are. That's the first honest thing you've said to me in 5 years, she said. She walked out. The next morning, at exactly 8 a.m. Central Time, the Ironwood Foundation released its complete financial audit to every major news outlet in the country. Every dollar accounted for, every allocation traced, every decision documented, dated, and signed. The financial irregularities story collapsed in hours. Reporters who had run the initial claims scrambled to retract. The Foundation's records were immaculate. 5 years of transparent, disciplined management that made Senator Cross's planted rumors look exactly like what they were. Lies. But the audit contained something else, something that sent a different shockwave through Washington. Embedded in the financial records were documents showing a direct link between Senator Cross's campaign donations and the contract award to Ashford Crown. Dates matched, dollar amounts aligned. A pattern emerged that no amount of political spin could explain away. Cross had received $2.3 million in donations from Ashford Crown subsidiaries in the 18 months before the Ironwood contract was awarded. The competing firms, including a veteran-owned company that had scored highest on every evaluation metric, were bypassed without explanation. Within hours, the story shifted. The headlines changed. Senator Cross faces ethics questions over Veterans Fund contract. Campaign donations linked to billion-dollar award. Veteran-owned firm was top-ranked. Why was it passed over? Cross saw the headlines from his Washington office. He read 3 articles, then closed his laptop. He sat very still for several minutes. Then he picked up his phone and called Derek Ashford one final time. "You said you'd fix this," Cross said. His voice was flat, dead. "Senator, you said 72 hours. It's been 36. And now my name is on every front page next to the word corruption. The audit wasn't supposed to. I'm holding a press conference in 1 hour. I will be distancing myself from you, from your company, and from this project entirely. If you're smart, you'll start calling lawyers. Real ones. Not the ones who told you this was manageable. Senator Cross, if we work together, we're done working together. We were done the moment you let your wife pour wine on a man who was smarter, tougher, and more patient than every person in that room combined, including me." The line went dead. Senator Cross held his press conference at 3 p.m. Eastern. He denied the allegations. He questioned the audit's methodology. He called the Foundation's disclosure politically motivated. It didn't matter. The documents spoke louder than his words. The Ethics Committee announced a preliminary review by 5 p.m. Cross's chief of staff resigned by 7 p.m. 3 colleagues who had previously endorsed Cross issued carefully worded statements expressing concern and a commitment to transparency. By midnight, Raymond Cross was finished. Not officially. The investigation would take months. But politically, in every way that mattered, his power had evaporated like rain on hot asphalt. Cole watched the press conference from his porch. Storm sat beside him, head resting on the armrest of Cole's chair. The TV was propped on an overturned crate, the same crate Cole used to store Storm's training gear. When Cross finished speaking, Cole turned the TV off. He sat in the darkness for a long time, listening to the crickets and the occasional distant hum of a truck on the highway. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. "Cross is done. Ashford is hemorrhaging board members. The contract is going to be voided within the week. We won, Cole." He typed back, "We didn't win. We cleared the road. Now we build." He set the phone down and looked at Storm. The dog's tail moved once, slow, certain. "You hungry?" Cole asked. Storm's ears perked forward. "Yeah, me too." He went inside, filled Storm's bowl first, the way he always did, then made himself a sandwich, turkey, mustard, bread that was one day past its best, but still good enough. He ate standing at the counter, looking out the kitchen window at the dark Texas sky. Danny's voice came back to him, the way it always did in quiet moments. Not as a haunting, as a presence. Somewhere they can just exist, without anyone telling them they're broken. Cole finished his sandwich, washed the plate, dried his hands. Then he sat down at the kitchen table, opened his laptop, and began writing the terms for the project's restart. From scratch. The way it should have been built, from the beginning. Every kennel, every training field, every quiet room, every therapy garden. Storm lay beneath the table, his warm weight pressing against Cole's boots. Outside, the night was still. And for the first time in 5 years, the road ahead was clear. Cole spent 3 nights at that kitchen table. Storm never moved from beneath it. The dog slept when Cole slept, which wasn't much, and stirred when Cole's fingers started typing again. The soft click of keys becoming a rhythm the shepherd knew as well as gunfire or silence. By the 4th morning, the new framework was done. Not a revision, not a correction. A complete reimagining of the Ironwood project. Built from the ground up on a single principle Danny had spoken out loud only once, but meant with every cell in his body. Somewhere they can just exist. Cole printed the document. 47 pages. He stacked them neatly, slid them into the same leather folder that had survived the ballroom, and called Elena Vargas. "It's ready," he said. "The full plan?" Every kennel, every training field, every quiet room. Staffing models, budget allocations, oversight structure. All of it. Elena was quiet for a moment. "How long did you sleep?" "Enough." "That means 4 hours total." "Cole." "Elena, it's ready. Can you assemble the board?" She paused. He could hear her thinking, not about logistics, but about him. About whether the man on the other end of the line was running on purpose or running on fumes. "I'll have them at the site by Thursday," she said. "All 7 members. But Cole, when they see this plan, they're going to want you to lead it. Publicly, not from the shadows. You know that, right?" "I know." "And?" "One thing at a time." He hung up. Looked down at Storm, who was watching him with that patient, unblinking gaze. "Don't start," Cole said. Storm's tail thumped once. Thursday came fast. The Ironwood construction site sat on 40 acres of flat Texas land outside San Antonio. Work had been halted for 3 weeks since the funding freeze. Equipment sat idle. The half-finished foundation of what should have been the canine rehabilitation wing was exposed to the weather, rebar jutting from concrete like broken bones. Elena arrived first. She stepped out of her truck and stood looking at the site, her prosthetic left arm catching the morning light. She wore work boots, jeans, and a faded army t-shirt. No ceremony, no performance. She'd driven 4 hours from Houston because that's what the work required. The rest of the oversight board arrived within the hour. 7 veterans, 4 men, 3 women. They came from different branches, different wars, different wounds. One walked with a cane. One had hearing aids in both ears. One had a service dog of her own, a quiet black lab named Bishop, who settled immediately beside Storm as if they'd known each other for years. Cole watched them gather. He stood near his truck, the leather folder in his hands, wearing the same NWU camo he'd worn to the ballroom. He hadn't worn it to make a statement. He'd worn it because Danny had once told him that the uniform wasn't about authority, it was about accountability. When you wear it, people know who you answer to. Elena called the group together. No trailer this time. They stood in a loose circle in the packed dirt, the Texas wind pushing at their sleeves. "You've all read the briefing," Elena said. "You know what happened at the gala. You know about the funding freeze. You know about Cross." She looked at Cole. "What you don't know is what comes next." "Cole?" Cole stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice, didn't project. He spoke the way he always spoke, like a man who expected to be heard because the words were worth hearing. "The original project was compromised from the start," he said. Ashford Crown cut the canine wing, reduced veteran housing by 40%, and replaced the therapy spaces with donor amenities. The design was built to impress investors, not to serve veterans. He opened the folder and handed the first page to the nearest board member. The pages circulated hand to hand. "What you're holding is a new plan, built from scratch. Every element designed by people who've served, not people who've profited from service. The kennels are stress-reducing. Sight lines, sound barriers, natural light. The training fields simulate real conditions, not showcase conditions. The quiet rooms aren't an afterthought. They're the core." A board member named Ray Cortez, former Army Ranger, 51, a scar running from his left ear to his collarbone, looked up from the document. "What about Ashford Crown?" "They're out. The contract is being voided." "And Ashford himself?" Cole paused. This was the part he'd wrestled with at 3 in the morning, Storm's breathing the only sound in the house. The part where justice met mercy, and neither one wanted to yield. "Ashford stays," Cole said. The circle went rigid. Elena's head turned sharply. Ray Cortez lowered the document. "Explain," Elena said. Her voice was neutral, but her eyes carried a challenge Cole recognized from combat. The look of someone who needed a reason before they followed an order. "Ashford is a builder," Cole said. "That's what he does. He's arrogant, reckless, and he let his ego corrupt the project. But he's also competent. The foundation vetted his firm for a reason. They build to code, they finish on schedule, and they know Texas terrain." "He humiliated you," Ray said. "On camera." "I'm not making decisions based on what happened to me. I'm making decisions based on what's best for this center and the people it's going to serve." "So what's his role?" Elena asked. "Reduced. He works under this board, reports to you directly. He doesn't approve expenditures, doesn't contact the press, doesn't make design decisions. He builds what you tell him to build, the way you tell him to build it." "And if he refuses?" "Then he's out, and we find someone else. But I think he'll take it." Elena studied Cole for a long moment. Behind her, Bishop and Storm sat side by side. Two dogs trained for different missions, sharing the same stillness. "You're giving him a chance he doesn't deserve," Elena said. "Maybe, but this project isn't about who deserves what. It's about who shows up and does the work." Elena nodded once, slowly. Not agreement yet. Acknowledgement. "I'll put it to a vote." The board voted, 5-2 in favor. Elena was one of the two who voted against. She told Cole afterward, standing by the trucks while the others loaded up. "I voted no because I don't trust him," she said. "But I trust you. And if you're wrong about Ashford, I'll be the first one to pull the plug." "Fair enough. One more thing." "Yeah?" "The board wants you at the site, not visiting, here, working, every day until we open." Cole looked at the 40 acres of unfinished ground, the rebar, the stalled equipment, the raw, honest dirt that Danny had dreamed about from the other side of the world. "I'll be here," he said. The call went to Derek Ashford that evening. Not from Cole, from Elena. She delivered the terms the way she delivered everything, without decoration. Derek listened. He didn't interrupt. When Elena finished, the line was silent for nearly 30 seconds. "You're asking me to report to a board of veterans," Derek said. "I'm telling you. In a construction trailer, in whatever space we designate, could be a trailer, could be a tent, could be the bed of a pickup truck. You'll work where the work is. I built a company I lost an arm worth more than your company to me. Don't finish that sentence." Another silence, longer this time. "And if I say no? Then your contract is voided. Your name stays in the headlines next to the word corruption, and the project goes to the veteran-owned firm that should have gotten it in the first place. Your choice." Derek exhaled. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Bring boots, not the kind that cost $400. Derek Ashford arrived at the Ironwood site at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes early. He drove his own car, not the company sedan, not the chauffeured SUV, a silver BMW that looked absurd on the dirt road leading to the construction trailer. He stepped out, wearing jeans, a plain white button-down, and work boots that still had the price sticker on the sole. He peeled it off quickly, hoping no one noticed. Elena noticed. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The first morning was brutal. Derek sat in a metal folding chair in the trailer, while the oversight board reviewed his company's revised construction timeline. Every line item was questioned. Every cost was challenged. Ray Cortez had a background in military logistics and spotted 3 inflated material estimates in the first 20 minutes. "This lumber quote is 30% above market," Ray said, tapping the spreadsheet. "Who approved this?" Derek shifted in his chair. "Our procurement team uses preferred vendors." "Preferred by who? The vendors or your profit margin?" Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I'll get revised quotes by end of day." "By noon," Ray said. "We're not running on corporate time, Mr. Ashford. We're running on veteran time, which means when we say today, we mean today." Derek nodded. Something in his posture shifted. Not collapse, not surrender, but the first millimeter of a man bending toward something unfamiliar. Accountability without authority. Competence without control. Cole watched from the corner of the trailer. He didn't participate. Didn't need to. The board was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Apply the kind of pressure that came not from ego, but from experience. These were men and women who had survived systems far more brutal than corporate hierarchy. They knew how to lead because they'd learned it in places where bad leadership got people killed. By the end of the first week, Derek had stopped wearing the button-down. He wore a plain gray t-shirt, the same jeans, and the boots that had finally lost their new leather shine. He arrived early, stayed late, answered questions he would have dismissed a month ago. He learned the dogs' names, not because anyone told him to, but because he heard the veterans talking about them and realized the dogs weren't accessories. They were the mission. One afternoon, Cole found Derek standing at the edge of the training field, watching a handler work with a young German shepherd who kept flinching at loud noises. The dog crouched low every time a truck passed on the nearby road. The handler crouched with her, patient, speaking softly. Derek didn't notice Cole approach. "She's scared of the trucks," Derek said. Not to Cole. To no one. Just an observation spoken out loud by a man learning to see things he'd previously walked past. "She was pulled from a collapsed house in Oklahoma," Cole said. "Spent 3 days trapped under concrete. Every loud sound takes her back there." Derek watched the handler guide the dog through a low obstacle, rewarding each hesitant step with calm praise. "How long until she's okay?" Derek asked. "Depends on your definition of okay. She may never love trucks, but she'll learn they don't mean the ceiling is falling." Derek was quiet for a long time. Then, without looking at Cole, "I've been thinking about what happened at the hotel." "Don't." "I need to." "You need to build a training center. That's what you need to do." "Brennan, I watched my wife pour wine on you. I didn't stop her. I laughed." His voice caught. Not dramatically, just the raw, ungraceful sound of a man swallowing something that wouldn't go down smooth. "I've been trying to figure out why, and the answer is worse than the act. I did it because I thought you were beneath me. I looked at your uniform, and I decided you were less than me. Not because of anything you did, because of what I assumed you were." Cole didn't respond immediately. He watched the young German shepherd finally clear the obstacle. A low, shaking step, followed by a burst of forward motion, tail cautiously wagging. The handler smiled. The dog looked up, uncertain but willing. "My friend Danny," Cole said, "used to say the dogs don't care what you wear. They care what you carry. The energy, the intention. You can put a dog in front of a man in a $1,000 suit and a man in torn fatigues. The dog will go to the one who's honest." "And which one am I?" "Right now, you're the one standing in a dirt field at 4 in the afternoon watching a scared dog learn to walk. A month ago, you would have been at a steakhouse negotiating your next contract. So I'd say you're somewhere in between. And that's further than most people get." Derek nodded, slowly, carefully, like a man testing whether the ground would hold. "For what it's worth," Derek said, "I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, not because I lost the contract, because what I did was wrong, and it took losing everything to see it." Cole looked at him for a long moment, not with forgiveness. That was too big a word for a dirt field and an unfinished building, but with something close to acknowledgement. "Show up tomorrow," Cole said. "Same time. Do the work." "That's it?" "That's everything." 2 months passed. The site transformed. Not with speed, with intention. Every decision went through the board. Every design change was reviewed by veterans who had lived the reality these spaces were meant to address. Kennels were built with sound-dampening walls. Training fields had uneven terrain because real life wasn't flat. Quiet rooms were placed at the center of the complex, not the edges, because Elena insisted that stillness shouldn't be something you had to search for. Cole arrived every morning at 5. Storm rode beside him, head out the window, ears pinned back by the wind. At the site, Storm moved through the developing grounds with calm authority. Younger dogs, rescues in various stages of recovery, watched him carefully. Some flinched when he walked past. Others pressed close, seeking his warmth. Storm adjusted to each one. He was patient with the fearful, firm with the restless, gentle with the ones who'd been hurt. Veterans noticed. One by one, they started arriving early, before the machinery fired up, before the workday officially began. They brought coffee in dented thermoses and stood in loose groups near the training field. They talked about dogs, about missions, about the things they couldn't say to their families because their families hadn't been there. No one called it therapy. No one scheduled it. But something happened in that space, in the shared quiet, in the presence of animals who demanded nothing but honesty, that no program, no medication, no structured appointment could replicate. Tommy Reeves arrived on a Tuesday, 28 years old, former Marine. He hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night in 2 years. He carried his tension in his shoulders, his jaw, his hands, always moving, always gripping, always ready for something that had already happened. He'd been paired with a dog named Biscuit, a scrappy, anxious mixed breed pulled from a shelter in Abilene. Biscuit was 40 pounds of trembling energy, ears too big for his head, eyes that darted toward every sound like the world was one loud noise away from ending. Tommy stood at the edge of the training field with Biscuit pressed against his shin, both of them vibrating with the same frequency. Fear dressed as readiness. Cole walked over, not fast, not slow. Storm beside him, matching his pace exactly. "First day?" Cole asked. Tommy stared straight ahead. "I shouldn't be here." "Why not?" I'm not good with programs. I've been through 4. PTSD group, cognitive behavioral, exposure therapy, art therapy. Nothing sticks." "This isn't a program." Tommy looked at him. "Then what is it?" Cole looked down at Biscuit. The dog was panting, fast and shallow. His eyes locked on Storm, who stood perfectly still, solid, unreadable, calm the way deep water is calm. "It's a place," Cole said. "That's all. A place where you can be with your dog without someone telling you what to feel about it." Tommy's jaw tightened. "He's scared of everything. They said he'd help me, but he's worse than I am." "Good. Then you'll help each other. That's how it works." What works?" "Recovery. It doesn't start with a person who's got it all together helping the one who's falling apart. It starts with 2 broken things sitting next to each other long enough to realize they're still breathing." Tommy looked down at Biscuit. The dog looked up at Tommy. For 1 second, just one, Biscuit's tail moved. Not a wag, just a twitch. A signal so small most people would miss it. Cole didn't miss it. He didn't point it out. He just turned and walked away, Storm falling into step beside him. Behind them, Tommy Reeves sat down in the dirt. Biscuit climbed into his lap, all 40 trembling pounds, and pressed his face against Tommy's chest. Tommy's hands stopped moving. His shoulders dropped half an inch. His breathing slowed. No one watched. No one recorded it. No one wrote it in a report or a treatment plan. That's how healing starts. Not with a breakthrough, not with a speech, with a scared dog climbing into a scared man's lap on a Tuesday morning in Texas, and both of them deciding, without words, without logic, without anyone's permission, to stay. Cole saw it from across the field. He didn't turn around. He didn't need to. He placed his hand on Storm's head and kept walking. Tommy Reeves stopped sleeping with a loaded gun under his pillow on a Thursday. He didn't announce it, didn't tell his counselor, didn't mark it on a calendar. He simply woke up that morning, looked at the nightstand drawer where the Glock had lived for 2 years, and realized he hadn't opened it in 11 days. Biscuit was on the bed. The dog had claimed the left side 3 weeks ago, and defended it with the quiet stubbornness of an animal who'd decided this was his post. Tommy's feet hung off the edge because Biscuit slept diagonally. He didn't mind. He got dressed, poured kibble into Biscuit's bowl before making his own coffee, a habit he'd picked up from watching Cole, who always fed Storm first, every single morning, without exception. When Tommy had asked why, Cole had said, "Because he'd do the same for me if he had thumbs." Tommy drove to the Ironwood Center. He'd been coming every day for 4 months now, sometimes for training, sometimes just to be there. Biscuit rode shotgun with his ears flapping out the cracked window, tongue sideways, looking like the least dignified therapy dog in Texas history. At the site, the transformation was almost complete. The final building, the residential wing for veterans and transitional housing, was being finished this week. Derek Ashford was on site, wearing the same dirt-stained boots he'd worn for 2 months straight, carrying lumber alongside 2 workers half his age. He didn't give orders anymore. He asked questions. He followed instructions. And when Ray Cortez told him to redo a frame because it was a 1/4 inch off spec, Derek didn't argue. He picked up a crowbar and started over. Elena Vargas watched from the trailer door, coffee in her good hand, a clipboard under her prosthetic arm. She still didn't trust Derek completely. Maybe she never would. But she'd stopped watching him like a threat and started watching him like a project. A structure being rebuilt from the inside, one correction at a time. "He's getting better," Elena said when Cole walked up. "He's getting quieter. That's usually the same thing." "You really believe people change?" Cole looked at Derek, who was laughing at something one of the workers said. Not a performance laugh, not the boardroom kind, but the honest, tired sound of a man who'd been carrying heavy things all day. "I believe people reveal," Cole said. "You strip away the title, the money, the audience. What's left is either something worth saving or something that was never there." Derek had something there. It was just buried under 30 years of being told that winning was the only thing that mattered. Elena sipped her coffee. "You sound like a fortune cookie." "You sound like my mother." "Your mother sounds like a smart woman." "She'd like you. She'd also arm wrestle you." Elena laughed. The sound carried across the site, and Bishop, her black lab, lifted his head from where he lay beside Storm. The 2 dogs had become inseparable. Bishop was calm, where Storm was watchful. Storm was steady, where Bishop was gentle. They complemented each other the way the best teams always do, not by being the same, but by covering each other's gaps. Cole walked the grounds the way he did every morning, not inspecting, inhabiting. He ran his hand along the finished kennel walls. He tested the doors. He stood in each quiet room and closed his eyes, asking himself the question Danny would have asked. Would I feel safe here? Every room passed. He stopped at the memorial wall. It was finished now, a long, low structure of Texas limestone, smooth and warm to the touch. Names were carved into it. Not hundreds, not a monument to mass loss. Just the names that mattered to the people who built this place. Service members who died in the line of duty. Canine partners who served and never came home. And at the center, at eye level, carved deeper than the rest, CPO Daniel Danny Webb. Cole placed his hand on the name. His thumb traced the W the way it had traced the trigger guard of his rifle 1,000 times. Muscle memory. Automatic. Sacred. "We did it," he said quietly. "Took longer than you planned. Had some wine thrown at me. Had to deal with a senator, a CEO, and a woman in an ivory dress who'd never been told no in her life. But it's here, Danny. It's real. And it's right." Storm pressed against Cole's leg. His tail moved once. A slow, deliberate sweep, like a salute performed in the only language he knew. "The dogs are good," Cole continued. "You'd love the setup. The kennels have windows. Real ones, not those wire cutouts from the FOB. The training fields have hills. You always said flat fields were useless because the world isn't flat. You were right. You were right about most things." He was quiet for a moment. A bird called from somewhere overhead. The wind pushed through the grass along the fence line. "I miss you," Cole said. "Every day." But it's a different kind of missing now. Not the kind that pulls you under. The kind that pushes you forward. Like you're behind me with both hands on my back saying, "Keep going, you stubborn idiot." He smiled, took his hand off the wall, turned around. Tommy was standing 20 feet away, not approaching, just watching. Biscuit sat beside him, ears up, tail still. "Sorry," Tommy said. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't." Tommy hesitated. He looked at the ground, then at the wall, then at Cole. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." Tommy stepped closer. His hands were in his pockets, a habit he was slowly breaking, but today they were deep, knuckles pressed against the fabric. "Before I came here," Tommy said, "I had a plan. A real one. November 14th. My buddy Marcus, we served together in Sangan. He didn't make it back. November 14th was the anniversary. I figured same day made sense. Had it all worked out. Location, time, letter." Cole didn't move, didn't react. But something inside him shifted. The way a foundation shifts when it absorbs a weight it was built to hold. "I'm telling you this," Tommy continued, "because I don't have that plan anymore. I didn't throw it away. It didn't disappear. It just got replaced. By Tuesdays. Tuesdays. Biscuit and I train on Tuesdays. Obstacle course, recall drills, the thing where he's supposed to stay and I walk away, but he always breaks after 12 seconds because he's Biscuit and he's ridiculous." Tommy's voice cracked. Not with sadness, with something warmer. "I can't miss Tuesdays because he gets nervous when I'm late. He sits by the gate and does this thing with his ears, presses them flat and looks at me like I abandoned him. And I can't do that to him." Cole's throat tightened. He didn't speak for a long moment. When he did, his voice was raw. "November 14th, Cole said. "What is it now?" "Just a day. A bad one, but just a day. And the next morning is a Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we do scent work. And Biscuit is terrible at it. But he tries so hard, his whole body vibrates. So I get through November 14th, because November 15th has something in it." Cole took a breath. Then another. He looked at Biscuit. 40 pounds of two big ears and trembling energy and an absolute refusal to be 12 seconds away from the person he loved. "That's what this place is for, Tommy." "I know. Not the buildings, not the funding. That. What you just said. That's the $1 billion. Right there." Tommy wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Fast. Embarrassed. The way young men wipe their eyes when they've been taught that tears are a malfunction. "Don't," Cole said. "Don't what?" "Don't apologize for feeling something. That's the whole point of being alive." Tommy nodded. Biscuit pressed against his leg. Storm pressed against Cole's. The four of them stood there, 2 men, 2 dogs, in the kind of silence that doesn't need filling because it's already full. Cole put his hand on Tommy's shoulder, squeezed once, then walked away. Storm fell into step beside him, matching his stride, the limp in his back leg barely a whisper against the gravel. That evening, Cole sat on the bench at the edge of the main training field. The center was quiet. Veterans had gone home or settled into the residential wing. Dogs were in their kennels, most sleeping, a few shifting, one snoring loudly enough that Elena had threatened to install soundproofing. Storm lay at Cole's feet, head resting on his boot. Their position, the one they'd held in Afghanistan, in hospitals, on porches, in kitchens, on nights when the world was too loud, and this was the only way to turn the volume down. Headlights appeared in the access road. Cole didn't tense. He recognized the car. Maggie parked her old Ford and walked across the field slowly, taking her time, looking at everything. She'd seen photos. She'd heard Cole describe it. But she hadn't been here, hadn't stood on the actual ground and felt it under her feet. She stopped beside the bench. She didn't sit down right away. She just looked. "Oh, Cole," she said. "Yeah. It's real. It's real." She sat beside him. Her hand found his arm and held it. Not tight, just present. The way mothers hold their children when the holding is more about gratitude than comfort. "Your father would have loved this," she said. "I know. He would have been here at 4 a.m, arguing with everybody about where to put the water bowls. He'd have argued with Elena. And he'd have lost. She's terrifying." She'd take that as a compliment. Maggie was quiet for a while. The evening sky was doing what Texas skies do best, turning itself into a painting no artist could replicate. All orange and gold and purple, streaked across more space than the eye could hold. "I think about your father every day," Maggie said. "Not just the bad parts, the morning parts. When he'd make coffee and stand on the porch and talk to whatever stray he'd picked up that week. He was gentle with animals, Cole. Gentle in a way he couldn't be with people. Like all the softness he had left went to the dogs, because they didn't judge him for what the war turned him into." Cole's jaw tightened. He deserved better than what he got. He deserved this. Maggie gestured at the center, the buildings, the fields, the memorial wall, the kennels where dogs slept safely for the first time in their lives. He deserved a place that didn't make him prove he was broken before it would help him heal. "That's why I built it." "I know. But Cole, I need you to hear something from me, and I need you to really hear it. Not file it away in that soldier compartment where you put things you don't want to feel. Mom, you built this for Danny, for your father, for every veteran who walks through that gate. But you also built it for yourself. And it's okay to admit that. It's okay to say that you needed this too." Cole stared at the ground. Storm shifted, pressing closer. The dog always knew. Always felt the change in Cole's breathing, the tension in his legs, the micro-tremors that preceded the moments Cole fought hardest to control. "I'm not good at needing things," Cole said. "I know. You get that from your father, and from the Navy, and from 12 years of being told that need is weakness. It's not weakness, it's just inconvenient. Cole Michael Brennan, you pulled your best friend from a burning truck. You spent 5 years protecting a billion-dollar fund without taking a cent. You stood in a ballroom and let a woman pour wine on your head and didn't raise your voice. And then you built this." Her voice broke. "You are the strongest person I have ever known. And needing something, needing rest, needing peace, needing to sit on this bench with your dog and your mother and feel like it's enough. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Cole's eyes burned. He blinked. Storm whimpered once, the same sound he'd made in Helmand Province, standing over Danny's body. The sound that meant, "I'm here. I'm not leaving." "It's enough, Mom," Cole said. His voice was thick. This is enough. Maggie leaned her head against his shoulder. Storm's tail swept the ground once. The evening deepened. Somewhere inside the center, a dog barked. Not in fear, not in alarm, but in play. The sound of an animal discovering that joy was still possible, that the world contained good things and bad things, and the good things were worth staying for. A veteran laughed. The sound carried across the field and landed in a place inside Cole's chest that had been locked for 5 years. He let it in. The Ironwood Veterans Center opened without a ceremony. No ribbon, no governor, no photographers. A simple notice went to partner organizations. We're ready. Send us who needs us. They came, one at a time, then in groups. Veterans with service dogs, veterans without. Men and women who had carried things no civilian would ever understand, walking through a gate into a place that didn't ask them to explain. Cole never took a title, never gave an interview, never stood behind a podium or accepted an award. He arrived every morning at 5, fed Storm, poured 2 cups of coffee, one for himself, one for whoever showed up first, and went to work. Some days the work was construction. Some days it was paperwork. Some days it was sitting next to a veteran who couldn't speak yet and waiting until they could. Derek Ashford stayed. He worked under the board for a full year before Elena recommended him for a permanent advisory role. Not management, not leadership, advisory. He accepted without argument. I don't deserve more, Derek told Cole one afternoon. Deserve is a word for courtrooms, Cole said. This is about showing up. Then I'll keep showing up. Good. Chloe Ashford never returned to her old life. She volunteered at the VA hospital in Dallas. Cafeteria duty, laundry, whatever was needed. 3 days a week for 6 months before she enrolled in nursing school. She never spoke publicly about the wine incident. She didn't need to. The woman who had poured wine on a veteran's uniform was becoming, slowly, imperfectly, genuinely, a woman who served them. Senator Cross resigned. His name appeared in ethics reports and congressional records, then faded from public conversation the way disgraced names always do. Quickly, quietly, without the mercy of being remembered for anything else. Frank DeLuca, the bartender, visited the center once. He walked the grounds with Cole, Storm between them, and said almost nothing for 30 minutes. Finally, he stopped and looked at Cole. That night at the hotel, I knew something was different about you. I didn't know what, but I knew. You were the only one who offered me water, Cole said. It's what Marines do. It's what good people do. Frank nodded. He bent down and scratched Storm behind the ears. The dog leaned into his hand with the easy trust of an animal who had learned to tell the difference between people who meant it and people who performed it. You built a hell of a thing, Brennan, Frank said. I built what a friend asked me to build. Same thing. On a Tuesday evening in October, 6 months after the center opened, Cole sat on the bench at the edge of the training field. Storm lay at his feet, muzzle on his boot, eyes half closed. The air was cooling. The sky was doing its thing. Gold fading to amber, amber fading to something deeper. Tommy walked past with Biscuit. The dog was trotting now, not trembling, not cowering, trotting with his ears up and his ridiculous 2 big paws slapping the ground like he owned it. Tommy raised a hand. Cole raised one back. Elena was locking up the trailer. Ray Cortez was loading tools into his truck. Bishop was lying in the grass next to a young pit bull rescue who had arrived that morning, shaking so badly she couldn't stand. Bishop hadn't moved from the puppy's side in 3 hours. Neither had the veteran assigned to her, a woman named Grace, 61, former Navy corpsman, who'd spent the afternoon on the ground next to the dog, hand on her ribs, saying nothing. Cole watched all of it. Not with pride, not with satisfaction, with something quieter, something Danny would have understood without Cole having to name it. Alignment. The thing he'd spent 5 years fighting for. The thing a glass of wine almost destroyed. The thing that didn't require applause or recognition or a single headline to be real. He looked down at Storm. The dog's amber eyes opened, met his, held. "Good boy," Cole said. Storm's tail swept the ground once. The sky went dark. The lights inside the center glowed warm and steady. And the man who had stood in a ballroom, with wine on his face and dignity in his bones, sat quietly in the place he'd promised to build, next to the dog who'd never left his side, and let the evening settle over both of them like something earned. Sometimes God doesn't answer with thunder. Sometimes he answers with a man in a stained uniform and a dog who won't leave his side. He places strength in the hands of the quiet. He places purpose in those the world overlooks. And he turns humiliation into foundation. What happened to Cole Brennan was not an accident. It was not bad luck. It was the moment that revealed what everyone else had missed. That the man they dismissed was the one holding everything together. In your own life, you may be the one standing at the back of the room, the one no one greets, the one they assume is there to serve, not to lead. But remember this, being overlooked does not mean being forgotten. God sees what others dismiss, and he lifts not the loudest voices, but the steady hearts who refuse to become what the world tried to make them. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and if you've ever been underestimated, tell us your story. Subscribe so these stories can reach more souls who need hope. May God bless you, protect you, and remind you, your worth was never decided by how others treat you. It was decided long before they ever knew your name.